Hi everybody, it's Karen McLaughlin here, certified personal trainer in Hamilton, Ontario. Here again with you for another Tuesday at 2 p.m. Facebook Live broadcast. I do this every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern, so I hope you can join me whenever you get a chance. This week I'm going to be talking about something that I see almost every single one of my female clients struggling with, and that is self-care and guilt. Yes, guilt. Unfortunately, and I don't know how many men struggle with this actually, so if there's any men listening to this and they want to give me some feedback, please feel free to do that. But for sure, it seems to be a huge thing for most women, that they just feel guilty taking time to look after themselves. And this is huge, obviously, if you're going to get anywhere with your health and fitness goals that you want to achieve. Feeling guilty about working on these things is not going to help at all. And you know, what I'd like to do is actually just start out by telling a couple of stories from the past week of my own life. You might think, given what I do, that I would have absolutely no guilt whatsoever about taking time to look after myself. And I don't have a ton of guilt, but as I was getting ready to do this talk, it made me really aware of, oh, there actually were a couple times this past week where I did have that little guilty feeling rear its head. So I just thought I'd share those stories with you to start, just to show it happens to all of us, I think. So the first one was on Thursday. We had a snowfall here, if you're not in southern Ontario. We had some really heavy snow on Monday and Tuesday. And that was really one of our only significant snowfalls this year. And so I ran into a friend of mine Wednesday, and she's like, hey, do you want to go skiing tomorrow? And my first thought was, yeah, cool. And then I was like, ugh, do I have time to do that? Or really, should I take half a day to go skiing? How frivolous. And my schedule was a bit lighter than usual because it was March break. But I was still thinking, oh, there's all this stuff I should be doing, because us women are good at shoulding all over ourselves, right? I should do this, I should do that. Anyway, so I really wanted to go skiing. It was going to be likely my only chance to go this year. The way it works around here is I usually get maybe one or two good opportunities to go skiing all winter, because usually if we get a big snowfall, it melts the next day. That's what happens. So it actually stuck around for a couple days. I thought, oh, what the heck. So we did end up going skiing. We just went to a local conservation area. It's not like I was gone even for the entire day. I was gone from maybe 11 until 3 or something like that. So 4 hours. But I did feel a little taking 4 hours out of the middle of the day on a weekday to do something fun. Remember outside, we were skiing, we were doing all the things I tell everybody that they should be doing. We were out in nature, we were moving our bodies, we were socializing, all of those are fantastic things for you, but I still felt a little guilty about doing it. But I was so glad that I did. But that's, those kind of examples are so common. I think you're probably thinking, you could think of many different examples in your own life like that. And then it happened again on Sunday afternoon. I was alone in the house. My husband was working, one of my sons was working, my other son was off with his friends, and I had stuff to do, but I also had a novel I was really into, and I sat for an hour in the sun and read and really enjoyed it. But I did feel kind of guilty, and that's stupid because I did 3 loads of laundry, I trained a client that day, I did, plenty of other stuff, but just taking that whole entire hour to sit and relax with a novel, I felt guilty. And some of you might think, how does that fall into self-care? And maybe for some people it doesn't, but for me, reading is breathing. I need to do a certain amount of reading or I don't really feel good. It's just like part of who I am. So these things are so important, but there's that little bit of guilt that seeps in, and for some women it can be a huge amount of guilt. Like for me it's just like a kind of a twinge, but for some people it stops them even from really making that commitment to their own self-care. So I hope, just by sharing a couple of my own experiences, that helps you to understand, this is something that is incredibly common, even for someone like myself who is supporting other people in being well. And, I'm supposed to be a role model for healthy living, and I think I do a pretty good job of that. But that little twinge of guilt, I think women are wired to nurture others. So we always think of our spouse and our family, everyone else first. We're caring for everyone, and then we put ourselves last. And we can't do that. I give you permission not to do that. I think we need to give each other permission to put ourselves first. Because you know what? We've heard it so many times before that it sounds cliche now, but the classic example, if you're on an airplane, they always tell you, put your own oxygen mask on first before you put them on your kids if this scenario happens. You can't give what you don't have. So if you want to be the best person that you can possibly be, whatever it is that you want to give to the world, whatever you feel that you're here in service to do, whether that's raising your family, whether that's running your own business, whether that's, whatever job or calling that is important to you in your life, you can't bring everything you have to it unless you look after yourself. And we know this intellectually. My clients are all very smart people, and they, of course you would say, I know I have to look after myself or I'm not going to be at my best. We would all say that, we understand that, but we're not living it. And there's something there that's just really ingrained in us, that we don't feel like we have permission to care for ourselves, that we need to do it for everyone else first. Cheryl Richardson, who is a very well-known life coach, she's been on Oprah a ton of times, so you've probably heard of her, and she's written a few books, and one of them is called, I think it's The Art of Extreme Self-Care. It's a book about self-care. I'm not sure if that's the exact title, but she says, if you want to have a meaningful life that makes a difference in the lives of others, you need to make a difference in your own life first. And that's so important. I think we should all have it tattooed on our forearm or something. You need to make a difference in your own life first. We all, as women, almost universally, we're so focused on the needs of others. But we can't give everything we have to give. Well, we don't have anything to give if we're running on empty. Like if we're depleted and exhausted, what do we have to give to the world? So the first thing I really want you to think about, well, first of all, what is important in self-care. I think most of us understand the basics of this. I mean, I'm always talking about it as what I consider the fundamentals of self-care, eating, sleeping, and moving. And I've, done quite a few other YouTube videos on all of those topics so far this year. So you can go back and look at those if you need some inspiration in any of those areas. But, and I would also put meditating in there for myself personally as another fundamental. I know not everybody would consider that to be a fundamental, so if you're not there yet, that's okay, but I also consider meditation a fundamental practice of health. So those are what I consider the absolute basic fundamentals for your own well-being. And then there's those other things that just bring joy to your own heart or soothe you. Though whatever those practices might be for yourself, and they're very individual. So for me, it's taking a hot bath on Sunday night is one of my self-care practices that is super important to me, and some people might really not care one way or the other. But for myself, it's like a ritual. It's my Sunday night ritual. My husband goes off, he plays hockey, and I have this nice long soak. I light candles. You know, I put essential oils in the bath. It's, you know, to me, it's just a way to help release anything from the past week that I've not felt good about, and just kind of wash everything away, relax, and really set myself up for a really nice deep sleep on Sunday night to start the week on Monday morning nice and fresh and feeling like mentally, emotionally, physically rested and refreshed. So for me, it's very important, and I've been doing that. I was trying to think before I sat down here to talk to you guys. I'm like, how long have I been taking a bath on Sunday nights for? Like years and years and years and years. Like pretty much most of my adult life, I think I've been doing that. So it's a very, and I don't necessarily do it in the middle of the summer when it's blazing hot because we don't have air conditioning, but then I replace that with like spending some time outdoors or something like that in my garden, something else that's equally feels nourishing to me. But definitely in the cooler months, a hot soak is definitely what works for me. And I also mentioned reading as another big thing for me. So if I know for myself, if I don't get enough reading time in, I just don't feel good. I feel mentally frazzled. It's very relaxing to me. And I like to, my reading's kind of split 50-50 between fiction and nonfiction. So, you know, I like to keep learning new things constantly, so I'm always reading nonfiction for that, and then I'm also just love story, and so, you know, and fiction tends to be more relaxing too, so I'm just getting sucked off into another world. So those are things for myself that I would include as I feel like fundamental for me, for my own well-being. I need those in my daily and weekly routine, and spiritual practice as well for myself. I would also put that in there. I mean, meditation is a sort of part of that, but there's other things that I do on a daily and weekly basis that will be kind of under that. I can't think of the word right now. Fall under the spiritual practice sort of area. So for yourself, it may be totally different things that are fundamental to your own well-being, but you need to identify what those are. You know what those things are that if you don't do them, you just don't feel good. So half the battle is even just realizing what the things are that you need to do to be at your best. So, you know, eating properly, whatever diet is that you need to follow that works best for you to keep you healthy and feeling good. Sleeping properly, like I did a whole YouTube on that. Get your 8 hours of sleep every night, and movement, lots of movement every day. And then whatever else are those other things that are fundamental to you for your own well-being that you know you don't feel right if you don't do them. So just even being aware of what those things are is an important first step. Once you've got that, it's the commitment to doing it without feeling so guilty about it. And one thing I talk to women about is, because this is kind of almost cheating, because I really want you guys to be able to do this stuff for yourself just because you need it, and it's your right to care for yourself. But because women feel so tied to the needs of others, one way that I kind of help them sort of sneak it in the back door and stop feeling less guilty about it is that I say, look, you know, you're not only doing this for yourself, when you're looking after yourself, you're actually doing it for everybody else too, because for two reasons. One, when you look after yourself properly, you're bringing your best self to everyone else in your life. So that's gift number one that you're giving to everyone. And number two is you're modeling self-care. And, you know, if you have a spouse, if you have kids, this is absolutely huge. You know, if you have little kids, think about, do you want them to be like pushing themselves till they're exhausted, not sleeping properly, not eating properly? Is that what you want for your children? I don't think anybody I know would say, yes, we all want the best thing for our kids. But if they're not seeing you doing it, do you think they're going to do it? So modeling is a huge reason to look after yourself. If you can't find any other reason, at least to begin with, just think of that. You are showing the other people that you care about in your life how important it is to look after yourself, so they're learning by your example. And that's no small thing in and of itself. So if you can't really get your head around feeling like you can give yourself permission to do all these things that you need to do for your well-being, even just to start, think, I'm modeling this for my kids so they can see what it means to look after yourself properly. Or even if you don't have any kids, then maybe your maybe your husband could use some modeling, or your friends. You are setting an example for every other person in your life, and the more one person does it and says, hey, it's not okay to wear a badge of honor about sleeping 4 hours a night. That's stupid. It's not good for you. I'm going to sleep 8 hours, or whatever else. You can take examples from any area. So that's a place to start if you can't really get in the door anywhere else. Modeling is huge, and it will, you'll have send out like a circle of influence, and it'll start to radiate in your life. Other people see you doing it and they think, wow, so-and-so is so amazing. What's gotten into her? She just seems so full of energy, and, she's always so patient and cheerful, and what's going on with that? So they're going to want what you have, and then they'll ask you, what have you been doing? And then you'll tell them, and then, maybe you can support them in making some changes. So that's number one. Number two is really just learning how to set proper boundaries, because women don't tend to be good at this either, generally speaking. And this is so important, really, in getting anywhere with any important goal in your life, not just in your health. Just learning to say no, because, and this is true, the more awesome you get, the more the world is going to want a piece of you, which is kind of one of the downsides of rocking it. But hey, that shouldn't stop you from being an awesome person. But the more awesome you get, the more people are going to be like, hey, I want a piece of her. So the more important it is to learn to set boundaries. And the people who are the best at setting boundaries really tend to be the best at looking after their self-care, because they don't let other people's needs take over their own. If you keep saying yes to everybody else, then you're saying no to yourself. So it's okay to say yes to yourself. I think women really need to hear that. So I'm going to say it again. It's okay to say yes to yourself. It really, really is. You need to say yes to yourself. So that doesn't mean blowing everybody else off. Of course you have responsibilities and commitments, and that's totally okay. That's part of living a meaningful life, having responsibilities and commitments. But you need to know how to balance those responsibilities and commitments with your commitment to yourself and your own well-being. If you think about the people that you respect most in life, for myself, I know the people that I deeply respect are the people who have figured out how to really be of service to the world in some amazing way. They're really sharing their own unique gifts in the world, but they are not burning themselves out. They are not running around depleted and exhausted. They've figured out the way to bring the best of what they have to the world, and to stay grounded and to live a life that honors their own needs as well. Those are the people I think are the coolest people around. So, there's people out there who have achieved some level of whatever you want to call success, but have just, they're exhausted, they're depleted, they're, really unhealthy in just about every way. And I don't really think that is true success. So you just have to sort of sit and reflect on, what is truly meaningful to you? What is it that you want to give to the world? And how can you do that while respecting your own needs? And you can't say yes to everything. And I know it's a huge problem for me because I have so many interests and I just want to keep trying out lots of new things. Or, I'm on meetup.com now and there's just groups for everything, and it's like kind of a kid in the candy store sort of thing. Oh, I'll try that one and I'll try that one and I'll try that one. But no, you can't do everything. So be really clear about what it is that's important to you, sort of personally, professionally, your family commitments, and be clear about what's reasonable. Your kids don't need to do 7 different extracurricular activities each, really. They're going to be just fine. So, that's the kind of boundary I see a lot of women really struggling with, because they want to give their kids all this stuff and they want their kids to experience everything, but you can't do it, especially if you have several kids. But see, that helps them. You think you're taking away from them, but you're not. You're actually helping them, because it's helping them to focus and prioritize and figure out what is the most important thing for them. Because if you say you can't do 9 different activities, pick 2, then they have to figure out what's most meaningful for them too. Anyway, that's just one example. I know that I'm feeling kind of liberated because I don't have to deal with extracurricular activities anymore because my kids are grown up. But I remember those days of all the different sports and everything. It's kind of crazy. So focus on what is realistic. Set boundaries. You can't do everything, and you can't say yes to everything. That's just the way it is. So you need to practice saying no comfortably. And that leads me to my last piece, which is you need to schedule your self-care in a way that works for you, so that it's part of your daily or weekly routines, depending on what it is. Like I mentioned, my hot bath on Sunday nights is that's part of my weekly routine, and I have things that are part of my daily routine. And so when I'm planning the rest of my day, when I'm booking appointments, I think about what's going to work for me. And if people start asking me for things that are going to start impacting my life in a way that it's not going to be possible for me to get everything else done that I need to do for my business, for my family, and for myself, then I have to say no. Or else if I'm presented with an amazing opportunity that I really, really want to say yes to, I have to figure out, is there something else that I can let go? Because you just can't keep adding and adding and adding and adding. And that's what most of us tend to do. So really focus and schedule it. There's that sneaky stuff. There's okay, most of us think about scheduling. We need to schedule time for exercise, and I've talked a few times before about ways you can actually get more movement into your life, so that movement is not just a scheduled activity. But for most of us, we still might want to. For me, it's sort of a lot instead of setting aside a block of time specifically just for exercise. Like, for example, today I had an errand to do where I knew was going to involve a bunch of walking, or that it could have been involving a bunch of driving, but I chose to make it involving, or taking the bus or whatever, but I chose it to be something that would be, I would do 2 or 3 errands, all with it. They were all sort of downtown-ish, and then I walked home. So I got my errands done, and I got to walk in, and it was a beautiful day. So that's called what a lot of people call stacking your life. So you're kind of accomplishing more than one goal at the same time. I got time outside, I got my errands done, and I got quite a bit of walking in. So you don't always have, there's, outright scheduling things like I'm going to do this at 4 o'clock on Wednesday, and then there's also sort of just figuring out how to build self-care practices into the rest of your day. So you probably need a bit of both. I would say, for most people, like the more you can integrate it actually into your day, the easier it's going to be. But also, until you get good at that, sometimes scheduling is helpful because it sets up clear boundaries. And even time for things like food preparation, just being mindful of, yes, that does take time. And so when am I going to do that? Especially if you are at that stage of life where your kids have extracurriculars and stuff, and there's a lot of time in the evening for those sorts of things. You may need to be more mindful about when and how you're going to do food preparation. And I did YouTube, gosh, was that last week or the week before? I'm losing track. Recently, I did talk about some strategies for food preparation, making it easier. But it's just another thing you have to think about. All these things are things you have to think about and figure out, how am I going to include those things in my life, because you can't eat healthfully unless you include some time for food preparation. There's really no way around, unless you want to spend a small, a real fortune on groceries and buy all your vegetables pre-chopped and everything, but I really don't recommend that. So it's just taking thought into how and when are you going to make time for those activities. And for me, a lot of it now, I'm not going to say everything happens effortlessly, but I get up, I do my morning meditation, that's it. Get up, go to the bathroom, my rear end hits my meditation cushion, and away I go. So I don't have to think about that so much. And the more you integrate these practices into your life, the less difficult it will become. And then hopefully the less guilt you will feel about it. But in order to start, I think that guilt can be a big barrier in even just kind of getting your head around how and when and why am I going to make space for this in my life. So whether you're outright scheduling it, or you're doing the kind of thing I do where I try to build my walking in with other things like my errands and those sort of things. If you've got young kids, you can build your walking into taking them out to the park and stuff like that. So there's all kinds of ways you can integrate these practices into your life. But until you stop feeling guilty about it, you're probably not going to do it. So please, ditch the guilt. Everyone, okay? I give you permission to look after yourself. The world needs you to be the best you that you can be. I know it sounds so corny, but it's true. We all have awesome things to give to the world, and if we don't feel good, we're not going to do it. So maybe you need a wellness buddy. That's, honestly, that is another thing that really helps is just to either find whether, you can commit to this with your spouse, but, as I said, most women seem to struggle with this more than the men, so maybe you need a friend, or maybe you need a group that can help you give yourself permission to give yourself the gift of self-care, because you just really need to, if I haven't said that enough times in enough ways already, we all want to see how awesome you can be, and you can't shine until you're looking after yourself. You can't possibly bring everything you have to the table unless you have underlying healthy habits. And it doesn't happen unless you do it, right? That sounds kind of dumb, but you're not going to get there until, people think, oh, I want to be healthier, I want to be healthier, I want to feel better. I hear that so often. And you can't be healthier and feel better until you're willing to commit 100% to the things that are going to make you healthier. And that seems like that's a really obvious statement, but it's sort of like that I started at the beginning. It's like we all know we can't be our best self unless we care for ourselves, but we don't seem to be able to do it without feeling guilty. And so we all know we can't feel our best unless we get enough sleep, unless we eat properly, unless we get enough movement in our day, and we meditate. I'm sneaking that one in there, but I'm gonna do a YouTube just about that sometime pretty soon, because I think it's so important. But anyway, like we know these things are important, and we know we can't be the best we can be without them, and yet somehow we keep minimizing it, putting it on the back burner. So I hope everything I've said will help you to stop pushing it to the back burner and put it front and center, because you have the right to feel great. You have the right to look after yourself and meet your own needs. Like that, that's fundamental to who you are as a human being. You need to meet your own needs. And yet, as women, we just really tend to deny our needs and look after everybody else's. So please stop doing that. Watch this video again if you need to. If you need more help and more support, I am definitely here for that. If you have any questions, you're struggling with anything in this area, please feel free to leave me a comment, or you can private message me if you'd rather keep it private, or give me an email at yourfitnessgroove@gmail.com. I'm here to support you on your health and fitness journey. And like I said, the thing I love, I guess I didn't say this outright, but the thing I love the most about doing this work is not necessarily that I see a client go from being able to lift 10 pounds to 15 pounds to 20 pounds on a particular exercise, but it's like watching them unfold and transform and to become see the best of them that I can, because once your health improves and your stress levels decrease, and you just become more vibrant, you transform, and it's like you're a different person. And so that's why really I do this. It's not because I love counting reps. Looking after yourself will transform you, and it's amazing. And so I want you to do it. And I think that's all I have to say for today. So please let me know how I can support you, and get out there and do what you need to do to look after your own well-being. And even if it's something weird, don't feel guilty about it. I mean, as long as it's not hurting anybody or it's not illegal, go for it, okay? And that's it until next week. So I will see you next Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern. And until then, have a great day. And if you're here in Hamilton, get outside in the sunshine because it's beautiful. And I hear it's supposed to be minus 15 Celsius tomorrow. Okay? So get out there now and soak up the sun. Bye for now, guys. See you next week.